Welcome to Digging In with HannaH's Field, where we take off where other cooking shows leave off. Yeah, man, they do all that food prep, blah, 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 looks so exciting, and then you go, you look at the food, and then they pull it up from underneath you. We do the opposite. We eat the food. Food's been cooked, we've been all making our dinners, and we interview some interesting guests. But right now, we've been talking about people that have helped us with the album, that have been on the album. Tonight's a special night. We're going to talk with our amazing producer, recording engineer, John Bolduc from Massiphonic Studios. We're going to break bread together. So Hannah was telling me this afternoon, she was like, what are you cooking for dinner tonight? I want some fried green tomatoes around the bush. They haven't quite turned ripe yet. So I said, all right, we'll have a Southern soul food dinner over here at the Cool Ranch. So I did some fried green tomatoes with some cornmeal batter. I did some.
You want to show us it?
Yeah, man. Red beans and rice. Did some greens. Did some veggie sausage etouffee. So I'm going to put my plate together, and then we're going to sit down and dig in. So I hope you guys saved yourself some mealtime. You know, whenever we try to promote the show, I'm always like, yo, have your dinner with us. So, you know, I want to know, what are you guys eating out there? If you're up on this thing yet, throw on what you're eating, or tell me what you had for dinner already.
Oh, so good. What you put in your rice?
Oh, you want my secret rice recipe?
Well, give us one little secret.
Turmeric makes it yellow.
All right. Turmeric makes it yellow.
Turmeric makes it yellow. Yeah, and then a little bit of oregano, a little bit salt and pepper. Cook it up in some veggie paste. I got some greens. Man, I can't wait to find out what Bolduc's having for dinner tonight.
He's a really good cook.
He is a good cook. Actually, for a while we were helping him, years ago, build the studio. And we'd be bringing dinner, or he'd be having dinner, and it was like, we're always like eating together. You know what I mean? Like we would be breaking bread, and it was like, I don't know, just really fun times, back in those times. So.
Oh, taking it out of the oven.
Actually, I fried them beforehand. I just kept them in the oven to keep them warm. So it wasn't like I baked them. They've been pan fried in some oil. Oh man. But, it's a fun time for me to be able to have an event, to share with everybody. We get to cook some good food and just kind of bust out a little bit, share some good tidings with y'all. So, I don't know. That's how I'm doing it. Like that. Turns around, can I see better? Nah, still can't see that good. See, we need like 5 cameras. I think I need like 2 from the top, 1 over the stove, front. I need like a full setup here. So if anyone's a video person and wants to help us hook it up.
That's right. What's that? What's that you're doing over there?
This is my sausage etouffee.
Ooh.
Going over the top of your tomatoes. And it's veggie sausage, so buyer beware. I did some wild mushroom stems. A friend of ours hooked us up with those mushrooms. So I guess they're not wild. I guess they're cultivated. Sorry. But saved us some stems. I dehydrated them, pureed them up in the food processor, and I use that to thicken sauces and stuff. And you can get like a little bit of mushroom in there, and super good. Here, have a look.
Oh. Don't drop my dinner.
That's why. Oh, yeah. I guess that'll be mine since it's one less sausage.
Don't drop my dinner. Come bring it to me, please. Come bring it to me, please. It's one of my favorite fried green tomatoes. Thank you.
I know, you always are getting it.
You only get them, when your tomatoes are too green and it's the end of the season. So,
Right.
so we are going to bring on our lovely guest. Mr. John Bolduc wears so many hats and has so many talents. He's a fabulous guitar player, which some people don't know because he is the head engineer and producer over at Massiphonic Studio in Manchester, Connecticut. He was also, I met him because he was my professor at the Hartford Conservatory. He was the head of engineering and sound over there, teaching the whole recording program over there.
He's a drummer also.
He's a drummer. I believe that was his first instrument, which we'll ask him.
Actually, you know what's funny about Bolduc is he's the kind of person where you can put pretty much any instrument in his hand and give him like an hour, 10 minutes a day, a week at the longest, and the dude will have it figured out and he'll be able to like jam on it. Like I've seen him like walk over to the piano and be like, oh, you mean like, what did you just do? He's like, I don't know, I just wasn't like, come on, you know.
Virtuoso.
Yeah, so we're really excited to be here with our good friend.
So we're going to bring him on. I have to say, though, Kevin Bryson jumped on. We were just talking about the mushroom powder that did you use that?
Yeah, totally, from Kevin.
So Kevin, the lion's mane bloomed a thrice time.
It's going right now.
From the block. And what did you do, dehydrate?
No, these are, Kevin brought us stems when he came over to help us with the video.
Yes.
A whole bag of them. And said, dehydrate them and, burn them up in the food processor, make a powder, and then you can thicken stuff with them. So that's, from Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, man.
All right, let's bring on Mr. John Bolduc of Massiphonic Studio. And I think he's going to be joined by Paula.
Ooh.
Awesome. Very exciting. So here we are. And let me
go.
The kitchen.
Hey, what's up,
guys? How's it going?
It's going good, actually. How things going with you guys?
Things are well. We miss you.
Oh, yeah, I know, man. This COVID thing. We got to get rid of this thing.
Well, yeah, but it was like we were hanging out like every day making this album, and then all of a sudden, that's how it goes. Then we don't see you anymore.
True is. I got to play, man.
So yeah, absolutely. So tell us what is for dinner, you guys. Actually, do you want to introduce Paula also, which I can't really see you?
Yep.
Yeah,
move a little toward.
I'm not getting this whole meal.
There you go.
Hey.
Hello, how you guys doing?
Hello, welcome.
I'm here for the food.
Yeah, me too.
And tech support.
Right on.
And we got this lovely box.
Oh yeah.
Paula ordered her own crystal grid.
I did. I saw crystal.
I haven't even talked to you about it. What do you think about it?
I love it, and I haven't tried it yet. I know I'm probably jumping the gun here. I'm sure you guys are going to talk about the album and how along with the songs and stuff. But it's so cool. So I had to grab it because I'm a HannaH's Field fan. I had nothing to do with the making of this album, except for moral support.
Yeah, and keeping John sane when he was up all night mixing.
Yeah.
Look at this lovely thing. This is what you get if you buy one of their kits to support them.
Yeah. That's right. Oh, beautiful. So what did you guys make for dinner? Tell me about your dinner tonight.
Yeah, it was a team effort. I made the chicken soup. And because it's kind of cold outside, just wanted something to warm the bones. And we make our own stock. So when we bake chicken, everything else goes into the crock pot, make our own stock. And, the usual culprits, onions, celery. Basically, I put my head in the fridge and go, what do I have to use? I went into the soup, and it turns out really good. Fresh stuff from the garden when I can. And we
peas
also
and corn.
Yeah.
Peas and corn. We could look at it. It's
right peas here. And corn and
peas and corn.
Chicken squash and
green onions, carrots.
Right on.
I don't know, anything in the fridge that needed to be done.
Right on.
Needed to be used.
And
that's the great thing about soup, right? It's like
throw it all in there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we also my lovely assistant here made hummus and some veggies, and we have some toast points and Paula's homemade pickles,
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, that's yes.
So, yeah, I
Well,
don't.
what do you have any secrets to your hummus? Do you do? Is there anything you like? Is it the same every time?
No, it's never the same.
It's
Sorry.
never the same.
Yeah, it's never the same. I usually add more garlic because we're kind of garlicky people. We like that, and it's really, really good for immunity. And I usually add a little extra lemon. So I just use like a basic hummus recipe, and then of course tahini. Sometimes I put in fresh sesame seeds as well, just to get
That's a good idea.
But the secret I found to making really good hummus is to really process it a long time. So like for people that follow a recipe, it says to basically like pulse it for maybe a minute or two. I have it running for what? I have a Ninja. I love my Ninja. So I have it like 5 minutes making a ridiculous.
Right on.
So it gets really smooth. And then paprika on the top.
I was wondering.
Yeah.
So we keep it that way. And then we just cut up Persian cucumbers, some organic carrots, and some fresh tomato from the garden.
Hell yeah.
Beautiful.
Bang.
How was your garden this year?
Well, for the most part, it was good, but I have acrobatic woodchucks.
Oh, damn.
I have 5-foot chicken wire fencing. They climb up the side of it, jump into the tomato plants, and the tomatoes fall, and they fall on the other side. They eat them, and they climb back up and get out again.
Yeah.
No.
Right. So we had cherry tomatoes. Pretty much all our other tomatoes they ate, man.
Wow.
But we got like the fattest woodchucks ever.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Hey, make some woodchuck soup.
Totally. Maybe. Yeah, it's getting a little disappointing.
I've had to hide the BB gun.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But
I'm only joking.
but squash was amazing. Cucumbers were amazing. So yeah, it was actually a really good garden year.
Yeah, which last year we didn't really get a lot of squash or cucumbers. It was
Right
like
on.
a bad squashy cucumber year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Your squash was awesome this year too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
But we got spaghetti squash until we think the squirrels ate it, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
The wildlife got the rest of it, but
Hey, man, everybody feasts when it's a garden, you know?
absolutely, man.
And potatoes. We did potatoes this year for the first time.
Right on. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. So
Those
just
are fun. You dig them up. You dig them up.
Oh,
Hey, we have people like chiming in over here. We have
and I've got
Echo. Is that a song request? Awesome. Hi.
Hola.
Josh. And Kevin. That's Mom. Morgan. Yes. Keith
Yo, what up,
Antaya says hello. Welcome, y'all. Welcome. And Wayward Bill was on. Yes. Blessings, y'all. Thanks for joining us. No, I don't know how to get rid of that. Just keep Echo for now.
Yeah.
Wow. So we are so happy to just be like chilling with you guys at this point. The album is done and we started recording in January. And here we are in October.
Yep.
We were finally done in September. You know what I figured out? It was 9 months, like the birthing of a baby. Isn't that interesting? 9 months, like the birthing of a baby. And so yeah, for those who don't know, John has produced many albums with us. I think I was counting today, and I think it was actually 5, including the live at Javapalooza, which people really like. So I count it as an album. 5 out of 7.
Damn.
So he's like the magician,
The man
behind the curtain that
knows
you
our sound.
don't see, like creating our sounds, influencing us, you know.
Pre-production, in production. Well, after we even set up and mic up, before we even record, we go home and go to bed. And this little Christmas elf is running around the studio, speaking guitars. Oh, I fixed your intonation. I noticed your guitar strings could have come down 0.3 millimeters, and man, it's gonna make you play so much better. Hey, I just checked your bass drum and did this thing to it. And you walk in and you're like, you already thought it sounded great, and it's like even better. You know.
It's so
even
true.
better. So
Thanks, man.
It's so true. So yeah,
you're a huge part of, you know, the sound that we've been creating over all these years, you know.
Right.
So, you know, always and always, yeah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about Massiphonic. So I know that it was like your dream studio that you built basically from scratch. Can you just like tell us a little bit about like the building process of a studio and how you figured out like how to get the sound that you wanted to out of the building process? Can you just tell us like a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've had studios since I was 18, I think. So I've always been in business for myself. I've worked other jobs, but always had that going on. And when I got this property, which is a miracle getting this property, but yep, everything fell in my direction. It was beautiful. Once I got the property, I looked at the building and figured out what a modern studio really needs. And that's a really big control room. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the control room these days. And I needed a playing room that was really good for live drums. So I went through a lot of math, which I enjoyed, which is kind of strange. Really dug it. And made the reverb time 0.6 seconds, or 600 milliseconds. And it's really powerful on drums because it's a very bright sounding room, and the drums just seem to explode in that room. Then the cool thing is that if I want something a little bit more mellow, I just put gobos around it, which are absorbent walls on wheels, and I can control that. So if I want like that 70s kind of dead drum sound, I can get that too. But I just love the room. And I've recorded a lot of other instruments in that room, obviously guitar and things, but even cello and violin, it all just shines in that room. So the math actually worked, and I used materials that are very, very bouncy. A lot of bounces sound around a lot. A lot of studios use wood because it absorbs the high end, and it's easier to control things in a room that has wood walls. When you're talking cement walls and corrugated steel ceiling, talking about a bounce. But if you control it and you do the math, it sounds really cool. So that's my dream. I've always wanted to do what I do, and I've always done what I do, and I'll continue on, man. And you know, I think I'll be that skeleton in front of the recording console. Oh yeah, he's gone now. Yeah.
I believe it. I totally believe it. We're gonna find you. It's like the last mix. I wonder what the last mix was.
Face on the floor.
Yeah, that was good.
It's just where John always is. This is the picture that you might. Wait, that's not the right one. You might see pictures that we post, and it's rare. You're like, oh, where are they? And what does this John guy look like? And that's usually
working
the back of his head. That's Massiphonic right there. That's the control tower. That's the control tower right there.
That's the most common view that I have of John.
Yes. The back of my head, man. Everybody knows that.
You know, it's funny though, that room is really, really amazing sounding. It's funny too, because when we were doing this mix, you know, Bolduc will ask a lot of questions. What do you want it to sound like? What do you want this? What do you want that? You know, and at one point I was mentioning, you know, just that like kind of Zeppelin-y type sound or whatever. And I feel like this album, and it's funny because Varney hit us up, a good friend of ours who's, you know, really big music critic. What's up, Varney? He was like, this album is humongous, and it's like it feels like the John Bonham drums are like goo, goo, you know, that room explodes them, you know, and the whole sound of the album is like, you know, huge.
So that has a lot to do with the actual room itself. Is how do you get that big drum sound? Like, what are some of the ways to get that big drum sound?
Well, the There is no digital reverb. There's very little in as far as ambience plugins on any of the drums. Honestly, on the vocals, I use a figure 8 microphone, so it picks up the room from the back end too, and that's mostly the reverb that's on your vocals too, except for delays, which I always like delays. But as far as the drums are concerned, if I have 2 microphones that are spread apart in the back of the room and then close mic the rest of the drum kit, I can control how far or how deep the drum kit sounds as far as ambience is concerned. So I just take those 2 microphones that are very ambient, and then I compress them, give them a squish, probably like 5-to-1, 4-to-1 ratio, which is pretty high, and then I just calculate the release time with the tempo of the song. So I just listen to the song, and as the compressors coming back up, I just kind of feel how it's bouncing with the tune, and that's why the drums are custom to the song, because the release times, the attack times and stuff are different to make it all kind of gel together and groove together. And then besides that, the sound that you guys get, because you're kind of a reggae bass type of situation, the bass is sitting on the 1 and 3, and the guitars are on the 2 and 4, which means you have all this space so that the drums can live within that space. And that's what makes the mix sound huge. Space. A lot of producers who begin think that, I'll add a whole bunch of stuff to it and sound big, and it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's like you have to get that 0 point where there's no sound, and then the sound comes out, and then the speakers can react to that from a resting position to full flex, and that's what makes everything sound absolutely huge.
Damn,
That's cool.
that is cool. It's cool that you said the way you mix the drums and like kind of tailor the microphone response per song, because I notice in the mixes, when we record guitars, Bully always says to everybody, don't play through your pedals. Let me add it at the end or whatever. And if you listen to each song, each one, even though it has the album has a whole theme to it, each song itself has its own personality. And you'll notice the guitar tone or the guitar effect will be different on one song and a different kind of style effect on another song. Everything, even though it's not 14 separate songs squished on an album, it's got one whole theme to it, but yet also each song has its own character. You can tell it's each tailored mix. You can, and it's cool the way you said that about how you do the drums and stuff, because I never thought, I noticed it in my ears, but I never thought what it takes for you to achieve all that. You know what I mean? I'm like, that Bully, he just makes it a little different, cool, but I didn't realize, also all the stuff that goes into it too, which is super cool.
Right on. But also, you guys afforded me the luxury to look at each mix and say, how can I improve this to support the message of the song? And a lot of times bands are in a big hurry to get things done, and that creates a hegemony across the songs, because you make one mix and then you take that mix and you paste it on all the songs, so it'll sound good, but it hasn't necessarily been customized to the emotion of that song and to the tempo and all that kind of stuff. So you guys were cool because you're like, yeah, keep mixing. I'm like, oh, thank you. We're not in a hurry yet. Oh, go, please. That's awesome. And I was able to make it work for the emotion of the song. So I appreciate you seeing that, man.
And I feel like this album, especially, usually us, especially when we're doing the duo stuff, we're always holding stuff back. We're like, oh, don't add this, don't add that. We got to keep it true that if they came out and saw us live, we wanted to sound like the CD. And so there's a lot of times where we could have added stuff in previous albums where we didn't. We didn't bring in extra players. We didn't, we really were like, okay, let's watch the time on the end of the songs. Let's keep them, radio length and all this stuff, radio ready. This album was like, we're calling in everybody we know. This album was like some of the songs are like 7 minutes long. You know what I mean? This album was just like, let's go for it. Let's really go for it. The band is, tighter than ever. We did a lot of time with the pre-production and playing with the metronome and practicing with metronome and then recording with it. So it was, super, super tight, but it has like a nice groove because we, put so much time into practicing with it. And so then in the mix, you're like, you put all this into it and you can't be like, well, hurry it up, man, and get this mix done. You'd be like, yo, I thought I was going to get this done, but I really got stuck in this. And we're like, yeah, but you're listening to it. And we would hear back on what you did. And we're like, don't worry about it, man. Keep going because each song is like better and each one's different. You're like, what? Oh my God. And you can't rush that aspect of it too, because that's an integral part of it, really. That's the shaping of it. It's like, you have like Picasso or whatever, he's making the sculptures and stuff, but he had like little dudes under him that like roughed it all out. And then he came in and did the finish. Well, to me, like the mix is like that time when you're able to really do, what you do. That's your art of it, and there was a lot of times too on previous albums where, you hear things that like Bully would add a little of this and a little like, it's cool, but no. You were doing all those little twinkles and sparkles and all those other great, things to the songs, and we're like, yeah, man, keep going with that, dive deeper with that. And like we rarely were like, no. This album, I think we really like just go for it.
Yeah, can we talk a little bit about like the synth sounds? There was a lot of really cool things that you added to certain songs. Like there's that like magical sound on Blessings that's like almost sounds like fairy sparkles. Can you talk? Did you have like a favorite synth vibe that you like? You were creating those from scratch. Is that how does that even happen?
Yes, absolutely. Sound design and synth patch design, love it. It's thrilling to me. Very rarely do I get to do it because I'm working mostly with like guitars, bass, drums type of stuff, which I enjoy. But really to get in there and program a synth to have a filter open and closed in the right time and have the decay and the attack of the sound itself open up and evolve in time with the music. It takes a lot of time to do, but it adds like this custom sparkle to the music. And when I did the first one, you guys were like, wow, that's really cool. And I'm like, sweet. And there's lots of little things that I did. Like I did some acoustic guitar parts that you don't really hear, but it adds a sparkle to it. I did stuff with some Hammond organ parts that I did, but all just kind of like subtle, so that as you're listening to the song, the color is changing. And that's what arrangers did with orchestras. If you hear a classical piece, you'll hear like, okay, this is what they're playing with oboes only, and then all of a sudden a little later they color it with, okay, now you got the violas and the oboes, and it's really mid-rangey, but that's what they were going for. And then all of a sudden they bring in the double bass and some brass, and all of a sudden it's big and huge, and it's the same line, but because you're using orchestral weight or changing the color, usually adding toward the end of the song, it culminates in kind of a sonic orgasm, where you're like, that's awesome. And you literally are tickling different parts of your ear, the cochlea. There's little hairs in the cochlea, and they have different frequencies that they're tuned to, and that's how you hear. Well, your ear now is like just getting a little bit of vibration, and then all of a sudden you're changing that to be a little wider, and a little wider, and now you have low end and high end, and it's coming at you, and your ears are going, and that's try to take you for that ride through the song. That starts with pre-production, where some of the songs start out with just a guitar, voice, and then we add in the bass and drums. And then all of a sudden there's a little Hammond organ, and all of a sudden there's some backgrounds, and then and it's such a meal for your ears. And you know, that's the way I kind of look at it, is creating this nice capsule that climaxes toward the end of like good food and good feelings.
So we can call him the Amachine now.
Oh man,
I'll buy that.
I gotta say there are quite a few ear orgasms on this album. And quite a few spots where, you know, the mood of the song is very serious or very emotional. It brings out like you want to cry, and the song already, you know, has that in it. But then everything that you've done to the mood, and you know how you had us doing, you know, on Another Rising Sun, the oohs. As soon as those oohs come in, you're like, oh my god, it like kills you, you know. And
that part reminds, like, I always think of the archangels, like I think of them like coming in during that time and like protecting us all. I was trying to get the guys to like, I'm like, guys, we have to learn those ooh parts, and I'm telling, you know, John Bolduc, I'm like, you know, those ooh parts, you know, the angel part. I was like texting him, we need to learn the angel part, and he's like, I'm trying to figure out what's the angel part. I'm like, you know, the angel part.
And we sang them, and me and Pitt sang those parts, you know. But all those, you know, all those aspects you're talking about really show themselves and shine themselves, you know, make those moods so much, you know, more intense, and some, you know, bring more of that. And then there's some parts where you're just like ready to jump out of yourself because, you know, just because of what's going on in the song, you know. So I mean, definitely, you know.
When Hannah sings Into the Waves, I'm using a Taurus pedal, which is that really low woo underneath it, and that's the first time that comes in. And when you do that Into the Waves and you got that low note, I'm like in the studio, I'm like crying, I'm like, I get it, man.
You're like, it's working.
And seriously, and when I was mastering the album, you know, yeah, there were points, man, listening to it, and there's like tears coming down. I'm like, yeah, that works, man.
Wow.
You know, and when something works and you get the little hairs on your arm standing up, and you're like, okay, we got it. And man, we got it.
And when you feel it, and when we feel it, because we've been listening to these songs, we've been doing these songs, and you probably hear them more than we've heard them. And then in the end, and we're doing that final mastering, and we hear the final mix and master, and we're all like, "Oh my God!" I think it tells you how strong it really is, because we all know what's coming, and when we hear it, you're like, "Oh!" And even now, when I listen to the album, it gets you. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, I've heard this 10,000 times. You know, and you're like, but
whereas a lot of times, I'm just like analyze, like, oh, we should have done this, and we could have done this, and we should have done this, and then we should have done this. Like, yeah, I don't have that as much with this. It's
no,
like, yeah, we took our time. We all took our time, and that's, yeah, it's a super blessing for.
Yeah, I get to be that person though.
Right on.
Because I'll walk in sometimes, or John will say, "Come listen to this." And I walked in when you were doing Hugs. That's my favorite song on the album, by the way.
Oh man,
it's just such a beautiful message that you guys wrote. It's like such an offering of peace to the world when we need it the most. But it's so fun. And I walked in, and he's like, "Look at this." So he's like, and of course you can't just go in and listen. John's like, "No, you have to sit in this chair right here."
Yeah.
Like he's measured out, like,
oh yeah,
your drum is going to which speaker, and like, yeah.
Heck yeah.
He's like, you have to listen to it this way. And I'm following it on the computer screen. I'm like, there's layer after layer after layer after layer. I'm like, okay, so I hear it, like, what's this? And I see, like, this one's coming in, this one, like, it's so cool. It's like an amusement park in a song.
yeah.
Things going on at the same time, and I got to watch it from like the production end, just seeing what he was doing with it and how he was layering it. And he's just such a genius. And he really is. And he's so professional and organized about it. So like, you know, when you look at the screen, everything is like, he's got a method that follows him from song to song, and even methods that follow him from band to band. So like, he knows how to do it, what's going to work, how can I do this the most efficiently in the least amount of time that fits whatever whatever the band wants or the performer wants. So everything's labeled just right. So he can find anything that he needs quickly. So like he's so organized that when he wants to go do something like that requires a creative brain of his, he can do it because he can find it easily. And I think that's part of what makes him such an effective producer and engineer. I know.
Thanks, honey.
No, it's true though.
Well said.
Perfectly
And
said,
Paula,
Paula. It's
you
perfectly
are
said.
a musician
Yeah,
also. So it's
to
not like
share
you're just
that.
like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm his girlfriend, I love him, and
Yeah.
whatever. No,
Yeah, I'm a musician myself.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Come on,
Teacher,
you know what I
right.
mean? So
Yeah, I'm a musician and a singer and a music teacher. And so like I totally like we both do such different things in music, but it's so complementary. But I could really be amazed by what he does and how he does it. And I totally get why even through COVID he was busy. Like people are always wanting to record with him or have him produce or have him do their videos. But it was so cool. But Hugs is like, oh, I was just listening to that going, this is so cool. Like I can just, it's like rapping. It was like being in an amusement park with cotton candy. And yeah, so I got to hear it from that end and just see, because I'm curious also as a musician, like, well, why is this here? And why is that there? And then what's this going on? And, you know, what's this going on?
I love that. And, you know, the cool thing, you know, Hugs, we wrote with Loud and Conscious, LC, a rapper, hip hop artist in New York.
producer.
Yep. And so a few artists we brought in, they didn't come to the studio, right? We sent files. And, you know, I know, John, you've been at this game for a very long time, right? Like producing for a very long time, for decades and decades, right? Yep. That probably when you started in doing studio work was not an option.
Yeah.
Remote recording.
Bringing people that were in, like, say, Germany, right? We had a singer from Germany send her files over and she's on the album, and LC sent us his files from Hugs from his home studio, which was super convenient during COVID if we couldn't bring them in. So you couldn't always do that, right?
No, back in the day when dinosaurs roamed the earth. You know, I started out using 2-inch tape, 2-inch analog tape, and a roll of tape is expensive. Plus, you're putting the music onto that tape, and then the idea of having to send that tape somewhere else, like through the mail or something like that, is
expensive.
Like crazy.
Well, and leaving the studio into somebody else's studio, like that's the tape.
Oh,
yeah.
You don't have a copy of that thing laying around.
Yeah, man, that's like totally painful. You know, there were some methods that you could use, but it required synchronization. You know, later on in my career, we started synchronizing tape machines up to each other because SMPTE time code came out, and we could actually get two things to run together. So you could actually send a tape somewhere, have somebody record on it, and then bring it back. But the digital revolution really is the thing that allows other artists or artists to work together from all around the world, whether they've met or not met. You can still create something amazing. And in between the synchronization and the digital revolution, there was they used to use telephone lines. Horrible. Oh my God, it was horrible. It was sending digital transmissions via phone lines, but the delay was so bad, and it was a nice idea, but it didn't work.
Like the old school, like phone on the thing, like
holy man, you remember that? Oh man,
oh my God, come on.
Yeah, dial up, man, not cool. You know, so we've gotten to the point now where you just send a 2-track file left and right of a mix, and then they can put whatever they want on it, give me the files separated, and now I can edit it. And as you saw, you know, it didn't use everything. You just kind of cherry picked like really cool instances of genius. And when those people sent you those files, it was so nice because it was nice little speckle here, a little this, a little flash there, a little something here, and then it culminates where like everybody's singing together, and it was just like, you know, full out craziness. And love working that way.
But
Yeah, there is a but.
I hear that.
You know, the tracks that we did, they weren't like the main track. It was auxiliary stuff that we kind of added to it. So in working that way, it's they can create the magic and send it to you, and it totally works. But I really believe that people need to be together in order to create the first container of magic, which are the basic tracks and you know, some of the lead vocals. There's just an interplay between people getting excited, and then you walk into the room with that excitement and the emotion of what you know the song is about, and you have that happen, and it comes across. It just, you encapsulate it musically, because music really is just an emotional language. And when you guys are together like you were, you know, Pitts and Little Lion and yourselves, or, you know, you knew what the song was, and you knew what it was about, and we talked about it. And when you guys were ready to roll in, totally, man.
That's awesome.
Yes, man. And when you guys were ready to play, it just sparkled, and it was so cool. And to me, it's like you have to be in the same airspace, the same energy space to have that, at least the basics, be created that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a synergy with players, you know what I mean? And I've heard great recordings of the drummers in Albuquerque, the, you know, guitar players in UK. I mean, I've heard some really great recordings, but there's a magic. And I say even the same thing, and I know we're talking about recording and being in the studio. I say this about live
recordings, which we have a couple live recording people right now too.
There's an element to live music that it's the band's communication with one another. It's the band as a unit communicating with the crowd, and the crowd communicating back. It creates you know, you can play a song, you know, from being on the road, or, you know, when you're on tour, 8 nights in a row, same song, same band, and each night there's something different about it, because of the club, because of what happened on the way to the show, because of the crowd, because of whatever, you know, the live element. So I think being in the studio live with live musicians, you know, not even tracking, everyone playing together, you know, you got that magic, you get that cohesiveness that is, you know, sometimes like the heart blood of music.
Absolutely, because you're throwing energy around, you're throwing sound around, and it's all bouncing together, and it's hitting you, and you know, the bass player standing there, and he feels the kick drum in his chest, and he's like, that's where that is. I know where it is. My whole body tells me where it is, and that to me is what gives music that special little spice. And like yourself, I've heard stuff too where people are all over the place and they just send stuff and that kind of thing. And it's very clean and it's very professional and it's in time, but to me, it's just missing that little bit of human energy that was shared, you know, and I love capturing that. I love capturing magic.
It's like what John says when we used to go to restaurants to eat.
Yeah.
Duties that, like, he always says he can tell when the chef loves being a chef. Like he can tell when somebody loved preparing that meal. It's somebody could use the same recipe, but it's so different when you can actually feel that person's energy that created it, because that energy goes into the food. And when you guys are at the studio, it's like that energy that you guys all exude and absorb into each other and give back out again, that's going into the music.
Yeah, and it's such an exciting energy being in the studio. Yeah, and so we did record, for those of you kind of tuning in and wondering about the Crystal Vision, we did record a lot the those tracks as a live band.
We all were in one room. The drum kit was in the room. The bass was, you know, direct to the board. I don't think the guitar amps were in the room. I think the guitar amps were like either in closets or in different places, but we're all in the room together playing through heads. So we have full mix on our headphones. We're looking at each other so we can make eye contact, you know, during certain parts or whatever. We could, you know, feel each other's energy. to me, it was like a live performance, but caught studio tight, which was awesome because and we practiced our butts off with the metronome, and then we were just really locked, synced tight. And I even noticed when we're done, anytime we're done in recording in the studio, the same thing with the White Album, the album before this one, Revolutionary Soldiers,
not the Beatles.
Well, now we got this album cover.
Like the White
Well,
Album.
because this album covers, got the dark, the blackness to it, and the other album covers got the whiteness to it. So I don't know. I started referring to Revolutionary Soldiers as the White Album. But even after that, after you're done in the studio, when we go to practice, when we go to play out live, those few weeks and months afterwards, we're so tight, we're so gelled because I think all that metronome work. And then you get to practice, and you're like, we're not going to do that anymore.
I want those tempos, by the way, Mr. Bolduc.
Not a problem.
We need to practice with those tempos.
It makes a huge difference.
We do. So the tempo of a song is huge.
Yeah.
Like the tempo of a song is huge. For sure. John and I sat for a whole night.
Yep.
And we figured out the perfect tempo for every song.
Yeah. And as a producer, to have the comfort with the artist to say, let's try that like a half a BPM slower, and we do, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
If that comfort is not there, the artist may look at you like, half a BPM? What are you, nuts?
Oh, man.
Like, yeah, okay, let's try that. And then it sits in a pocket, and you're like, well, yeah, that's the pocket.
You just feel it. You're just like, that's it. You're like,
absolutely.
But I think there's a trust that has to be established between producer and musician, and we're so lucky because we have such a long history of recording together. But not only that, just our friendships too. You know what I mean? Over all these years. I'm at a point in my life where if Bulldogs like play with one arm tied behind your back and do this thing, I'm like, what the fuck is this guy talking? I'm like, all right, I'll try it. I'm gonna do it. It'll either be usually 90%, 98% of the time it's amazing, and then maybe 1.5 to 2%. I don't think so, Bulldog.
And we'll be honest, that's the nice thing.
And that's the cool thing too, is we can communicate, and he'll be like, yeah, all right, cool, I hear what you're saying, or
we tried it.
But that's the trust. The trust is a huge thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's true.
That's kind of producers have different styles, and one of the styles is where they have a sound, and then they stamp that sound on everything. I'm not that way. I'm let's find out what the band wants. Let's find out what the audience is interested in, and let's find if we can find something new and create something together. And being able to take in information when the band says, kind of want to do something, and to be able to throw it into the brain and go like, oh, and we did that numerous times. Even in the arrangement process, when I was at your house and we were just playing live, with kind of throw it around and throw the volleyball around and see who catches it, and here comes an idea and let's try it. Oh, here's another idea. We try that, and then all of a sudden, whoa, that's amazing! What an honor, and what a wonderful way to work with artists, because the artist, if a song has a problem, the artist will help solve that problem, but the artist needs to know that there's a problem with the song to begin with.
Yeah.
So once they hear it and they're like, oh, I can fix that. How about if we go to this A minor thing and da 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 da, and then you're like, whoa, that's better than anything that I would have ever thought of. And it's that give and take of like, oh, here's a little creativeness, and oh, here's some of mine. Oh, some of yours, okay, good. And we kind of swirl it around. It's the best way to work. It's there's nothing better.
I completely agree, and I also think too, the benefit that the artist gets from it is now you are intimately intertwined with it. The song inside and out, and then when we go in the studio to record, what to ask of us in the studio. You'll ask us to do different things to fully capture the essence of that song because you've known it from the seedling. You know what I mean? And it's super cool.
Absolutely, man. That pre-production stuff that we did, it was glorious, man.
Yeah.
I know what it was like 3 nights or 4 nights or something like that.
Yeah, we had
Over
good-
a number of weeks, though.
Yeah.
They come once a week.
Yeah, I
and
think you
then-
came at least 4 times.
Right on, yeah, you know?
We would like work on stuff, and then you come back and check on us, and then we work on more stuff. And
Absolutely, man.
yeah,
That-
it was great.
That was delicious, man.
So great.
Yeah, and to have that outside ear, a lot of artists will ask me that. You know, newer artists will say, "Well, what does a producer do? You know, why do you need a producer? You know, you have the engineer, he's making the recording, but what does a producer do?" And to have that outside ear, you know, before the songs are even completely finished, to say, "Oh, maybe change this, or maybe change this, or that bass line is, you know, cutting out the vocals there, or there's something just not working with the drums and the bass." It's golden. It's like you're that outside ear, you're that other member
As
of
an
the
artist,
band.
as an artist, you get real. You know, these are your teeny little
We're
babies.
sensitive.
You know, you're like, what do you mean? Don't say that about this song. It's perfect just the way it is. I wrote this song, and you don't know what's going on. And don't tell me that was wrong with it. No, you can't add that to it. This is my song.
Right on, right on.
But to have that outside person like, yeah, but it's a great song. But if we do blah 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 blah, and then you're like, oh my god, and then you're crying at the end of the song because of that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. How do you deal with that with you know, newer artists? I know like artists that have recorded a lot. I know I used to be really sensitive and had, you know, I mean, just like getting used to collaborating with people and making changes to a song like That's Your Baby. And now it's so easy because I have seen over time and experienced how much better something can be with other people's brains and thoughts and energy put into them. How do you like communicate that with, say, a new artist that you might not have worked with much, that's coming into the studio and you hear something, you know, and when somebody comes into Massiphonic, are you always taking the producer hat, or is that just like special and it only happens sometimes? How does that work?
Well, producing takes time. And so a lot of times when a band comes in, they don't necessarily want to be produced. And I kind of asked that question.
Yeah.
And so for me, it just becomes a recording gig, which is a lot of fun, but getting personally involved is so much better. Now, does the band have the time and the money to actually do producing stuff? That would be kind of the first question. You know, can we actually make this happen and make it equitable for everybody? You know, there's all ways to work things out, but so that's like the first question. You know, can I do this with these guys? And
Or girls.
or girls. And then it's like, when you're in the studio, if I have like a little suggestion, even if I'm just the engineer on the situation, if I have a little suggestion, I kind of plant it as a little seed and see if it catches. Because trust is kind of one of those things that needs to be earned.
Yeah.
So I'll try with like little things, and as they see that it's improving with little things, then it's like getting underneath a balloon. You kind of have to be kind of gentle to give it a little tap up and get underneath it so you can hold it and support it. And that's kind of the trust thing with a musician, is they have to see that you are in their corner and you are helping the situation, and then you can actually support them in creating something really amazing. I don't think the going in like a bull in a china shop situation works. I think what it does, it imprints a sound onto something, but it's not necessarily where the artist wants to go. And that's really important to me, to know where the artist wants to go, what they want to create, how they want to talk to their audience. And so it's really just getting that little bit of trust going. And as they start trusting you more, then you can make like huge suggestions, and they're like, okay, we'll try that. The time that I was produced, the guy who was my producer was a bit rough, and it was
We've met him before.
Yeah, right.
We met those guys.
We met those guys.
Yeah. And it was like my children got slaughtered, and you walk around, I give up. And that's the wrong attitude to have in a studio. It's not about giving up. It's about that excitement of let's create that next thing. And when that buzz starts going around the room, oh my God, great suggestions. And as a producer, I have to be able to take in a suggestion, roll it around, see if it's going to work. And if it doesn't work, to let a musician know that, a really cool idea, but I don't think it's going to work for this song. And still gain their trust by not slaughtering the song, but by gently pushing it in a direction. And like I said before, musicians will find a way to fix something, and you'll be like, wow, that's so cool.
But you know what? The other thing is having recorded in other places. On the one hand, like what John is saying is, you want to kind of gently elevate people and empower them, which he does really well. But I've also been in studios where the engineer or the producer doesn't give you any feedback.
Yes.
And that's not helpful
No.
as a musician. So being able, like when John puts on the producing hat, that's coming with a lot of not only him being on the other side, the recording artist, and the songwriter, but also having all of these decades of experience with being in the studio to know how much to lay back and how much to lean in forward, which I think he does really well. And particularly because I've had him, I've worked with him as a singer, but I've also had some of my vocal students record with John for like regular songs, auditions for colleges. And he works with singers, which I might say are the most sensitive people.
Yep.
Because and I will say though, as a singer though, but our instrument is our body. It's very intimate. So we do tend to be. I'll not say the soprano jokes.
No, we're good.
John has a very good way of working with singers to make them feel really comfortable, and also to strike that really nice balance between not saying too much and not getting kind of in their way, but also saying enough to keep them uplifted, through the process.
I was exactly going to go there. That's one of my favorite parts of working with John is working with him as a vocalist and all the feedback that he gives. I've gone into studios where the engineer is amazing and brilliant and, has all these accolades and says nothing about the vocal. We're just not vocalists, And I'm like, after working with John, it's like, so how was that was a good take. I'm like, well, usually I would have to take 20 more feedback, but and it's so sometimes the feedback is so subtle, and it can shape a song. You're so good at like bringing out the emotion, me personally in my voice, and bringing out the correct emotion for the song. And sometimes when you don't even know, because sometimes you're in the studio and you're just in there for hours and you're tired. And but I love that you know my voice so well that you're like, okay, no, you've had it. Or you're like, oh, wow, like you just opened up. It's midnight. We've been doing this for 5 hours. Yeah, can you take like some more takes? I'm like, yep, totally.
But also you're a trooper too, which is a beautiful thing, man. Some people get discouraged and, what do you mean I got to take like, 6-7 takes of this song and can't you just edit it together? And you're always game for like, we can try that. Let's try that.
Yeah.
And it could be as simple as moving the mic a little bit or changing the pattern, or just what are you thinking about at this particular point? Think of that childhood memory where you were, something, and then the sweetness comes across the voice because the emotion and everything is all connected to that mechanism. And just that little pinch of advice can make something amazing. So yeah, I dig it.
That's awesome. Well, we have some people saying hi to you. I just wanted to say
oh,
hello. Actually, I brought up a picture of and Mariana. So thanks y'all for tuning in. Thank you all for tuning in. I do have I was looking through some
Oh,
That's
I love that. There's so much joy in that.
his face. I'm sorry, Spigs, your face is covered right now. I wanted you to see that. I wanted you to see that. What was going on in this picture? This was this.
Right?
Yeah. Do you remember this day?
Yes, man. That was a song. It's gonna smell like weed in here, Mom.
That was that song.
That song, man.
So yeah, we got Mr. John Spignesi over there, and we got Zach and Off the Dome, and we were having fun, obviously, right?
Oh yeah. Good.
we were having fun.
I thought that was the cat sitting on the back of the chair. I was like, do you have the cat in this?
No.
He said, my hair is in locks ago. I know, Spigs with your big hair was so awesome.
Right on. That's awesome.
Oh my God. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Absolutely. So do you have any advice for people? I know there's quite a number of people out there that are musicians, and also we have somebody out there that does live sound, more like live recordings. And then I know a couple of people out there that kind of do their own home recording stuff. Let's see, where should we go? Which one? Live, home recording? But how about let's home recording? Because okay,
A lot of people want to
I
know.
hope you were going to go there because I know he's got a lot to say about that.
yeah. So first of all, let me just say, like, well, let me just ask the question, like, at what point should you as an artist, because there is so much technology you can have at home now, but at what point is it like, no, I really need to go into a professional studio and do this? And I know it could be at any point that you could do that, but at what point do you think now these days that it's really important to go into a professional studio?
Right on. Well, traditionally, it's said that a song should be recorded at least 3 times. One is during the writing process where you're fishing out how things are going to work.
Okay.
The second time is like what we used to call an 8-track recording. It's basically, throw it in the computer and see what happens and see if the parts are working, and then really bear down. And now this is going to be the final recording. So a lot of people get stuck on that second one, thinking that that's going to be the final recording.
Like the demo, basically.
The demo, exactly. But a lot of people don't do demos anymore.
Yeah.
Because they have the computer there. They're like, oh yeah, I wrote it and bang, there it is. And it's like, well, no, the demo should be very liquid, should be flexible, so that you're like in the demo mode and you're like, that middle section just doesn't happen, so either cut it or shorten it or whatever you got to do to it, and or rewrite it or whatever. And you've only spent a little bit of time on the demo. So I'm talking scratch guitar, really quick vocal, one background line maybe, don't produce it out, because what you're doing is you're wasting all of that magical energy on the demo. Do the demo, see if the song works, and then whoop, put that in the back seat, then start over again and go, okay, this is the real song. Mm-hmm. So I think that a lot of people at home don't do that, and you're missing one of the links. The other thing that I think is really important for the people that are recording at home is that if you bring a friend with you, so another musician, and you're bouncing ideas off of that friend, there's an energy and an excitement that occurs that doesn't occur while you're there in your bedroom by yourself. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're doing some vocal tracks. Why not have your drummer friend come over and sit there with you? And now you're kind of playing to your drummer friend, and he's like, messing around and dancing around or whatever and playing air drums. And all of a sudden there's this excitement that comes over through the music. So doing everything by yourself in your bedroom creates like this closed environment of emotion. Yeah, an emotional vacuum kind of situation. So if you have a friend that's a musician, bring them in on it for important things like the lead vocal, the solo, if there's a really like crazy bass part, have a friend come over and play that bass part to your friend. When you're in a professional recording studio, there's always the engineer or the producer that you're bouncing stuff off of. And I like to have people in the studio for that kind of energy, especially when I'm doing something like like doing rap, hip hop type of stuff. The more people, the more it becomes a party, the more amazing the energy comes across. So I think that for those recording at home, definitely bring some energy into it, bring some human element into it. The cat's not going to care. The cat's like, you're singing, all right, whatever, I'll watch it. So that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Definitely consider that kind of thing. And then the other thing is capturing vocals in a non-professional environment is difficult, because most people don't realize all the sound that's going around them and how the environment is changing their sound and making it not sound professional. So there's a bunch of things you can do. Put a mattress behind you, or a curtain, or curtains in front of you, to absorb what that square room sounds like. Square rooms are just nasty for sound. You get standing waves and flutter echoes, and it's just disgusting. So the more that you can make it not square, and for home environment, you have to use absorption, because you really don't want to use the bounce that's going around the room, because it's not pretty. I think those three things, if you kept an eye on those, would make much better home recordings.
But then when should they say, okay, I've done what I can do at home?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When should they go to a studio? Because on the one, because I get students that ask me this too, because on the one hand, they see people like, I forget the chick's name, but the girl that did the Peter Pan song, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like people that basically are just doing a quick one and done thing, putting it on YouTube, and they become, YouTube famous. So a lot of people then think, oh, that's all I need to do. I could just do this with, GarageBand and a USB microphone,
Right.
and then get famous. But that fluke that happened with that song and maybe a few others is not the norm. And if somebody's looking to make a living, people forget that they don't have to be super famous to make a living in this business, right? So like, at what point should those people then say, I've done what I could do at home, I need to go to John, or, to a studio?
Right on. There's a couple of thoughts in there. One is when you get to the point where you're mixing the stuff and it just doesn't sound professional. You compare it to a CD that you purchased, or MP3, or MP3 stock. But anyways, some kind of music file that is good. You listen to it and it just doesn't compare. That's when when you want to take that step, that you really need to see a professional. And that person can usually straighten out those tracks and make them sound better. I do a lot of that, where people send me tracks, or I even take their computer and I use their system on their software and mix it in my studio.
One just arrived yesterday.
One just arrived
gigantic
yesterday.
CPU coming out of the car.
I'm not a computer store, but so at that point, when it doesn't match up to something professional, then you go into the studio, and then the engineer will tell you whether the tracks that you have are recorded well enough to do what you want to do. And then a lot of stuff is just in the box anyways, so that stuff usually sounds pretty good. So what was the other question?
Yeah, well, the question was, when should they just not only rely on their home recording to put that music out there, like when do you stop producing something on your GarageBand or your home Logic thing, whatever, and sticking it on iTunes or whatever they're doing nowadays,
right? Instead
of saying when do they, I guess, to talk real life musicians, when do we spend the money and the time?
Yeah.
When is it then worth it to go there? I mean, I think it's always worth it, but then again, I have you right here. So
Yeah.
People that have
I
to
like learn so much in the studio. So it's like you said, I think it's always worth it, because going in the studio, especially with somebody like John, who is also a music professor, you're getting an education, and you're learning, your harmonies are growing, you're learning so much about sound and about music. So I think it's never a bad time. You're never not going to grow as a musician if you're like, yeah, I have the money and I have the time and I don't feel like figuring out this recording stuff on my own. So I think it's never, personally, I think it's never a bad time. But yeah, but when is it? Yeah, when is it?
You know,
bad, right?
also you got to remember, you got to let all the experts do their expertise.
Right.
You're the musician. You're the artist. You know, we're lucky that we can have great sound recordings. We're lucky that we can do all this great stuff in our houses and stuff. But that's not necessarily your area of expertise. I like to get away from the wheel. Put me in the back seat.
Mhm.
Let Bolduc drive. Let me do what I'm supposed to do and concentrate on the drums. I'm not even trying to sing, you know, or do backup vocals or something. Like a lot of times when we're live, we all have to sing and play at the same time. But when we're in the studio, I'm playing the drum or I'm singing or, you know, whatever. Even guitar solos are not in the middle of the song. You know, Lion comes back and works the solo because now we can focus on that. So sometimes being able to just let the expert do their expert thing, you do your expert thing. And, you know, there's something about that too. And also, Paula, you made a great point too about, you know, the 1 in a million chance that the YouTube person sat in their, you know, room and they blew up. You're going to have that. You're totally going to have that. But you're also looking at stuff that if you go and listen to it a year later, 2 years later, 10 years later, it's like candy is spoiled. You know what I mean? It's delicious at first, and then it just like you ended up with 5 cavities. There's a difference between that kind of recording, which is fine, and there's also a difference with the kind of recording where you listen to a lot of this music. I mean, God, there's so much music from the 70s or 80s or whatever that you can listen to over and over decades, and it still is amazing. It still opens your head, and because of that recording process, because of the engineers involved, because of the musicians, because of that energy that's created in that studio session, whatever that magic is strong enough to transcend generations. So it's more than just a quick, oh my God, that was great. I know, I'm sick of that thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, my favorite albums were the ones where I put them in and I was like, what the hell did I buy this for? Take it out. Weeks later, put it back in. And I'm like, I mean, maybe I could like it. And then all of a sudden, it clicks, and you're like, holy cow, I can't stop listening to it. And anytime I listen to it after, you're like, it's the best album ever, or whatever. You know, so,
Yeah.
you know,
I think a lot of people, what you're saying, Andy, like, because I teach this to my students too, there is a difference between art and entertainment. And I think like a lot of the younger musicians that I work with, like the teens, the 20s, early 30s even, they confuse that. So if somebody comes to me for like, you know, for vocal training, or they're trying to get in through an audition or whatever, and they're like, well, I want to sound like this, and I want to do this, and I want to do it like right now, and I want to do it yesterday. And yeah, there's a difference between making art and making entertainment. Art can be entertaining, but a lot of entertainment is not art.
yeah.
And so when you're going into a recording studio, you're really making the art in a way that is not only artistic, but is entertaining for years to come. Like, you want to make something that's a piece of artwork. You don't want to put a stroke of red paint. I shouldn't say that. There's lots of modern artists. You don't want to be like, here's my art. Here's a stroke of red paint on a canvas. Here you go. Not to say that that doesn't have some meaning for some people, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, like the younger people that are making music now, because a lot of them have grown up with YouTube, with social media, with, you know, GarageBand. I mean, I didn't grow up with any. I had a little cassette tape recorder next to my Lowry organ and my turntable next to that, to try to teach myself some piano by dropping the needle and trying to get it to the very same spot to figure out what the chord was. But kids these days, but they're like the 20s and the early 30s never had to do that. And it's like, I think it's easier for them to not realize how important it is to get those other ears on it and allow the experts to do the expert stuff. They don't see the pain and the sweat so much behind what it takes to make the music. They just see that, oh, you know, this is on YouTube right now, or, you know, there's an MP3 available, but
Yeah.
overnight successes take, you know, years.
Right.
Yeah, and another thing too is that sometimes we hear about these artists, and this artist is famous and he recorded it at home. If you do some digging, you'll find out that there are seasoned artists that have gone to recording studios, saw what was going on in a recording studio, and or is an audio engineer. Like right now, there's Billie Eilish. That you know, her brother is like a slamming engineer.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, you know, I get that, you know. So not in so you see this out of the box bang. It might not be an out of the box bang. There might be a lot of stuff that happened before that occurred. And then of course there's equipment. You know, when you sang your vocals through a $3,000 mic, a $5,000 preamp, $7,000 converter into the computer.
So that's like 12,000. I don't know.
Different than my $300 microphone that I have.
True.
Yeah, that's true too, because like most people are not going to have that at home unless they are professional musicians making enough money to want to keep investing in better equipment. But you go to a recording studio, you're paying for that.
Yeah.
The Digitech multi-pedal, 107 different guitar effects versus a real wah pedal, a real distortion pedal. You know what I'm saying? Like,
And her amp and
you know,
man.
Yeah.
I dig, man. You know, although sometimes going the cheap route can be fun, because if you use the contrast of like an inexpensive gizmo and you put it against really quality recording, suddenly it becomes its own little sound nugget that's interesting. But if you use cheap stuff all the way through, it doesn't really work. It just sounds cheap. You know, so.
Well, you know, I learned something really valuable about what John does back in the spring. So because of COVID, all of our lessons had to go to Zoom, and we usually have a spring recital for music makers. And I was like, all right, well, we're going to have to do this on Zoom and pre-record it. So I decided to do a virtual ensemble, because I'm like, I'm one of those people that goes, well, that looked like I could do that at home, like no problem. So we did a version of Ode to Joy with orchestration that this composer Matt Riley did. I asked him for his permission. I said, can I write a choral version of this and use your backing track? So long story short, I teach all of my students and I tell them, record on whatever you have at home. Usually it's, you know, the iPhone or something, and send me, you know, I had parameters and all that sort of thing, but I said they had to record at home and send it to me. And then I got all this and I'm like, oh, I could probably do this in GarageBand. Like 52 tracks later, my computer can't even, I mean, these are kids, you know, these are not, I did have 3 professional singers who are my alumni who also sang on it, right? But John and I sat in the studio for like, that little project was like 18 hours in the studio, because he had to take all of those. And of course, because it's recorded in different equipment and different people, different, you know, piano's here or the vocalist is here, and it's 8 feet away from a mic, or 6 feet or 2 feet. It's like all different. And John had to put all that stuff into his computer and make magic out of it. And it was like amazing to see what he could do. But I was like, okay, this is so much different than doing a virtual ensemble and just taking everybody's raw stuff that they did at home.
Yeah.
And I got a big lesson. What?
I said it sounded great and it looked great. I watched it.
Yeah, well, my daughter, who's a film student, started a company called Ensemble Editors. I don't even know if I told you about that. But Maya and some of her film friends from her university put together a business, and because all of us music teachers need to do these virtual ensembles, and then all of these musical groups want to do virtual ensembles, keep their music going, keep their organization going, keep the money flowing if they're making money from it. If they can't get together, especially singers, because that's, you know, a big thing against the CDC. It's like that singing is like the biggest spreader, right? So virtual ensembles blew up. So my daughter created a company around doing virtual ensembles for people. So she's done stuff for me. She's done just little duets. They're doing something for like one of the local barbershop groups of like 30 people. They're doing that. So yeah, it's like, it's another reason to like, if I didn't have John, I don't know what I could have done. So
Right.
yeah, well, you fixed it. There's a lot of fixing to do.
Man, I think we have a special guest waiting in the queue to ask a question.
I think we do.
Shall we bring
Bring our special guest
our
on.
special guest on?
Oh my God!
What's up? Of course, you got me right when I went off camera to take a bite.
You can actually take a bite on camera. That is the whole.
Oh, that's right. This is a dinner and a show. Hey, John. Hey, Paula. How are you guys?
Man.
So good to see you guys. Yeah, this is
just not knowing who this gentleman is. This is Jack Pitts, or Mr. John Pistritto, who is our bassist.
I have been enjoying this series so much. I didn't get to participate in one yet, but the Ben Goldernovic episode was just absolute gold. All those like Dave Matthews stories and stuff. But this is kind of the main event for me. I was like, I gotta get home. I gotta get tuned in because we got Bolduc on tonight. I don't know. I don't really have a question, but this is sort of what I was thinking about. And it was funny to come into the conversation where we were talking about Bolduc's, doing his Bolduc thing, the production expertise and the studio recording stuff. But I was thinking about Bolduc, the musician, and how, each of us, musicians with our various, I'm the bass player and Bongo Bliss is the drummer and Little Lion is like every one of us, he shows us how to do the thing that we thought we knew how to do. He's like, oh, maybe think about this bass part. And if it's just like, I mean, wow. He picks up an acoustic guitar. He's got a 4-part harmony figured out in like, in no time. And it's like, we puzzle over this stuff at practice, you and me, Hannah, our harmonies and stuff. We spend a lot of time, and he just like, it just comes to him. And, guitar parts, everything, keyboard part. I'm like, oh, hey, Jeff, I really enjoyed that keyboard part on the album. And Hannah's like, no, that was, that wasn't Jeff, actually. That was Bolduc too. My God. What doesn't he do? But so I don't know, John, I guess my questions are more to you, like how, like, let's just get you talking about your musicianship. Like, what's your favorite instrument to play? Like, what would be your go-to instrument if you were playing a live show?
Oh yeah.
How much do you must shed every day, like on every instrument. You can't like just keep up you've got to literally play all those things every day, because I know how it is. Stuff drifts if you don't play it, and you play keyboards and guitar and sing and
Everything.
yeah. Tell us about your musicianship. What did you learn to play first?
Well, I started out as a drummer, and I was about 7 years old when I saw Buddy Rich on the New Haven Green, and I want to do that. And I learned to play jazz. I actually won an award as a junior jazz drummer, and so I really had an excellent foundation in rhythm. But as I got older, I figured out that the girls actually levitate toward the guitar players. So I learned how to play guitar. I started when I was like 12, and you could not separate me from the guitar. I played constantly. I mean, we would go camping, and I would be in the tent with the guitar practicing. And, it was just, it just was a natural thing. I couldn't imagine not doing it. It was like breathing. So to this day, yes, I do practice. I practice guitar. Don't practice drums that much. And then vocals, not so much, but I have a really good teacher. So, and then, keyboards, I picked up primarily from theory, because I did go to college for music, and so I'm not a piano player that you can throw a chart up in front of me and I'm like, oh great, yeah, I'll play that. But I hear parts, and that's kind of my thing. I hear parts, and I hear how it'll fit in between the two little things that need something in between them. And that really has to do with studying orchestration and listening to a lot of classical music. And I mean, Beethoven was the man. You know, I had a little kid come home, you know, out walking around the neighborhood a little bit, you know, and sit there and listen to Beethoven and go, oh my God, look how that's all interconnected. And I can kind of see in my head how all the instruments work together and how they're playing off of each other, and who's choosing what note of the chord to start on and where that line goes. And then from the drumming, I've learned rhythmically how to emulate a pattern and then create another pattern that is like the first pattern. So there's some consistency there, but it doesn't create boredom because it's slightly different. And so once you see the patterns and patterns within patterns, then all the music and arrangement just makes so much sense. So that was kind of my thing, you know, drums, guitar, you know, played bass, keyboards. I sang in bands. I've been in bands since I was 14. And it's only recently that I'm like, I really like playing in bands, but I don't like gigging. I mean, I love the camaraderie. I love creating music, but you guys work a lot. You break down, you bring the equipment in, set it up, break it down. That's a lot of work, man. So kudos to you guys, man, for, you know, knowing you love it and doing that work, man.
And can I just say, I can make a plug for music teachers everywhere. So with all of these, like, you know, learn piano, simple piano, and this and that, like, I don't think people realize what they miss out when they're doing that, and they don't understand the bigger structure of music, which you get from a music teacher.
Right.
And John had some really good music teachers growing up also, and as an early adult and at the conservatory. So like there's something to be said for that. And also just for like classical music does teach you structure and orchestration, and all of that goes into arranging and listening and hearing. But I think that's one of John's superpowers is as an engineer, is that he's not only an engineer, but he's also a musician himself. And you forgot to mention you play bass too.
Oh yeah.
So he plays, so you know, he plays like everything except I don't think I've ever heard you try a brass or a woodwind instrument.
Oh, it tickles the lips.
Yeah, yeah, like that.
I played cornet. That should have. Oh.
Yeah, but he plays everything. It pisses me off sometimes. But
I'm not true.
because I can't play guitar, and I'm like, I always had my excuse that I'm a pianist, so I can't play guitar. And then I meet John, and he's like, "Yeah, no, that's just BS. I can play everything." I'm like, "Of course," because he plays everything.
Beautiful. Well, I think we're going to wrap up our amazing conversation today. Is there anything you want to say about like the album, like what John's done to it, or anything, any certain song highlight?
I mean, I can't emphasize his contribution to this thing enough. I mean, beyond making the songs themselves, which is you, Hannah and Bliss, but you know, he's next to me. It's just like he really brings these things together. I couldn't imagine topping Revolutionary Soldier. I thought that was so good.
Right on.
And I think this is better. It's absolutely amazing. I'm so proud to be a part of it, and I just can't gush enough about the job that you did, Bully, and you, Hannah and Bliss, bringing us all to life. And, so yeah. Thanks for that.
Right on.
We're excited, and yeah, so I know I haven't really talked to you much, Mr. John Bolduc, but it's launched out into the world, so now we can hear it on all digital platforms today. So you can go to Spotify, wherever you want, and listen to it. Also, better than that would be to actually purchase the CD or purchase the WAV file that's a little bit better than what you might get on streaming platforms. So you can do that through Bandcamp. Nice. And yeah, we're super, super just grateful for seriously all the work that you put in, all the hours, and yeah, we could not have obviously done this without you.
So, my pleasure.
And do you guys still have any of these left?
We do have crystal grids. Yes, there's probably about 80 left in the world right now. So if you want your crystal grid, it comes with the CD package, and you can order that through Bandcamp. And
you know what? Before you go though, because you guys didn't mention it, and I think this is like the coolest part, and why I made one is that you can't really see it, but they have a chart in here that shows you which crystal goes with which song. So you have this whole other experience other than just listening to a CD, which is already amazing. But, you know, for those of us that are inclined, you know, this is a really cool idea that you guys had.
Yeah, each crystal was paired with a song. We had people listen to the songs and pick what crystal energy they thought went with it. And yeah, definitely. So yes, your physical CD comes with a meditation tool, and we have meditations that we've created, and we'll help guide you through. So
yeah, really super cool.
That's the vibe. Yeah, I'm excited, Paula, to hear when you start working with it, how it goes. You know. Did I send you? Yeah, I did. Okay. You got the meditation and all the explanation of the grid and everything from email. Did you get that, Paula?
Oh yeah, you sent something to me. And then there's this chart.
Right on.
And then all of the crystals.
And then all the crystals. So I'm sure that John has a mix he's got to get to because he works 24 hours a day.
This is his morning. We did breakfast.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. We'll be up till 5 a.m. making a mix. But, you know, maybe we can have you on again. And I know there's just to have maybe even like more of like a recording question for people interested in recording in the future, and have expertise with John Bolduc and the recording studio. I was thinking there's probably a lot more that we can all talk about, but
anytime.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Blessings, everybody. Thank you, Paula, for letting us borrow John for so long, all the time. Thank you.
Yeah, I love you, Pid.
Yeah.
Right, Pid. Later, man.
Bye.
Oh, what did you just do?
I was trying to unmute this thing.
What you do? Oh man! All right.
Well, this is us saying goodbye.
Yes. So that was Mr. John Bolduc. That was very, very special to get him for as long as we did, because usually he's working on a mix, working in the studio. So we're happy that we got to introduce him. He's a very, very dear friend and a dear teacher of mine, definitely one of the people that I've learned the most about music from. So so give thanks for that, and give thanks to all our teachers out there. And thanks for hanging out with us for Dig In. We will see you guys on the next episode. Go to hannahsfields.com for all your great information. And definitely don't forget to order your Crystal Grid and listen to Crystal Vision. We love you guys.
See you soon.
Dig it, dig it.
Dig it. Dig in and dig it.
No, I'll never do it again.
Now it's never turning off. Oh, man.